to become a true playoff team. To talk more about that, more about the season, and more about what's ahead for the Kings and the Mavs, let's bring in our Sactown Sports Kings insider, Frankie Cartoscelli. Good morning, Frankie. How are you?
Good morning, Jason. I'm not sure if you just saw the little breaking news just happened, but Mike Budenholzer just got relieved of his duties in Phoenix. So just kind of sorry to steal the thunder from the breaking news banner, but having a better morning than Mike, I guess.
Yeah, so we've had two news. David Griffin in in New Orleans being relieved of his head his front office position, and now Mike Budenholzer out. His last game was here yesterday. That organization to me is a mess, Frankie, the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, it does seem like, and I think that here in Sacramento, we're looking at things through purple-colored glasses all the time, as we should, but I guess there's some solace in the fact that there are other teams, a lot of other teams, I guess, around the league that are kind of going through their own tumultuous or chaotic 24-25 seasons as well. You have Memphis firing their head coach and John Morant having some uncertainty there. You have, Denver with Michael Malone and seeing what direction they're going to go in. It seems like they were shopping Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. We'll see if those conversations continue in the offseason. And then Phoenix, I think they're number one in the NBA in salary cap, and they have to figure out what direction they're going to go in. Bradley Beal is someone who could be on the move. Kevin Durant, someone who could be traded this offseason, now needing a new head coach. So no draft pick this year. Just kind of a mess and something that I think not a lot of us expected. I think on this show earlier in the year, I think I said that I thought Phoenix might be in the mix for a finals run. And just from the collection of talent they had, and with Tyus Jones and Plumlee, they got a couple guys in some cheap bargain contracts. It seemed like they had a good makeup of a roster, but as we've seen, sometimes that a collection of talent isn't always the right collection of talent, and they're going to have a lot of angles they can go this offseason and trying to find the right direction to move forward in.
What's crazy, Frankie, I'm now looking at this, 15 teams in the West. 1/3 of them this season either got removed or got an extension. And where I'm going here is Portland did not make the playoffs, but they extended Chauncey Billups. You just mentioned Phoenix firing Coach Bud. Malone, who's in the playoffs in the Denver Nuggets, he got relieved of his coaching position. Memphis is in the play-in, and Mike Brown and the Kings were in the play-in. That's weird that 3 of the teams are either in the play-in or the playoffs, and they had a coaching change during this year.
It just kind of knows how everyone's kind of, again, like the Kings and, Dallas, maybe they're not looking for a head coach, but from a roster standpoint, they're going to be trying to find a similar direction too. They're kind of looking for what the best foot forward is and trying to find their stability. I think for Portland, you have a good young core and a young head coach in Chauncey Billups. It seems like that they're gelling very well, and the Kings saw firsthand against Portland. They struggled against them. They went 2-2 against them, but those 2 losses came pretty close together, and you saw that young collection of talent, they're gelling and they're working. And we saw the Kings in the past as well, kind of seeing what that culture and that consistency what that can provide, and knowing who's going to be head coach, knowing who's going to be in the front office, knowing that the players that are in the locker room around you, you're going to be building with them. And that's something that I think that a couple of those other teams are looking for. And Sacramento, we'll see what they choose to do in the coming weeks. We could see in the next week if Doug Christie is someone that they feel confident moving forward with and kind of leading this next era, or whatever you want to call it. But I think for Portland, that's a matter of they like what they're seeing there, and they like the results, and the young guys are starting to blossom, and they're hopefully building something over there they can continue to progress with.
All right, so let's get into what we know. We've made it through the 82. Kings did get the 9 spot. They will host Dallas on Wednesday. I know you'll have some previews on Sactown Sports and all the stuff as we continue to zone in on that. 3-0 against Dallas. That's the good news, though I don't know that any of them really matter now, Frankie. I feel like both teams are completely different heading into this one.
They're different. And I think when you look at Anthony Davis, that's kind of the head of the snake there, and someone that the Kings are really going to have to focus on. But we were talking about it last night at the media dining table or yesterday at lunch, I guess, 12:30 start. It's going to come down to, I think, the players around Anthony Davis. You can kind of expect he's going to have a big game. I think that just kind of comes with the territory. But P.J. Washington is a player who has absolutely been just a Kings killer in recent years. I think he has a career-high 40 points here. That happened when he was with Charlotte. Klay Thompson is somebody who obviously last year went 0 of 10 in the play-in. Is there a redemption arc possibility? That would be pretty interesting to see if he can find it on Wednesday night. Jaden Hardy's when the Kings originally drafted and traded to Dallas. You don't want to let him get going. Max Christie had a pretty good game against the Kings earlier in the year. So you look at the supporting cast, Spencer Dinwiddie. If you can have Anthony Davis get what he's going to get, 25, 30 points, sure. Kind of hold him back from having that monstrous 40, 20-point games he's capable of. If you can kind of keep him in that area and contain the other, those other supporting cast members, you're going to be in a good spot because now you don't have Kyrie Irving, who I think if you could canvas the league, Kyrie Irving's one of the most dangerous players in the league as far as a single elimination game. You see his big game performances, his track record speaks for itself. Having him off the floor, it really is huge for the Kings, especially when you look at the fact that they themselves don't really have a traditional point guard or someone that can, you have Keon Ellis who you could throw at Kyrie Irving, but I think Doug kind of made a comment yesterday about how the team is pretty interesting and how it is kind of a challenge to navigate the fact that they don't have a point guard right now, especially with Malik Monk out, who isn't a point guard himself. You don't really have to worry about that matchup as much. And I think Anthony Davis is somebody that the Sabonis factor, how will he fare defending him, all the stats, I think those go out the window too. I think those funny 10-0 Sabonis first AD in his career coming into the season stats. Obviously, the Lakers swept the Kings this year, so that's not a thing anymore when AD was still in Los Angeles. But you want to go ahead and just kind of focus on that one as well and see who can help out and, try to limit him as much as you can. Because, again, if you can keep AD into that 25, 30-point range, limit the damage from the other players, you're going to be in a good spot. But three-point shooting is going to be key. And I think that kind of comes down to the identity of this Kings team. If you can contain the other team on the perimeter, you're going to be a good spot of winning that game.
It's going to be interesting, Frankie. We've seen this team, the Kings, all year, I think have some trouble with teams that present some size. And Dallas has it, but it's so isolated in just the front court. Not that their guards and wings are small, but it's not, a bunch of 6'9" long wing players. They got a few, but I feel like with Gafford, Lively, AD, it's really, really in the paint. So I wonder how the Kings' approach will be against that. That's such a rim protecting big front line for Dallas.
Well, I don't know if they're going to start with it, but we did see, I think it was Christie at the time, roll out that lineup of Valanciunas and Sabonis. Mm-hmm. And that was against the Gafford Lively lineup at the time. I don't think AD played that game. But I do think that's something the Kings could go with. It seemed like it worked very well. I think they ended that game on a run. They were trailing by 8 points, I believe, with 3 or 4 minutes left. And they went on a big run to end the game and steal that game in Dallas. So do you see them go with that? Because it would make sense to me as far as the physicality goes. And I think you kind of have to just fight fire with fire. And if a team's going to go with the double big lineup, you go ahead and mirror that. And it depends on the athleticism. Like, you wouldn't see a Valanciunas Sabonis lineup against the Cavs like earlier a week or two ago, but maybe against a less mobile lineup. Obviously, AD, even though he's got his injury ailments, he's still a pretty athletic big. But Gafford's somebody who's more of a bruiser and can kind of get to the rim and get to the basket, kind of like a Valanciunas. That would make sense to me. But you also see them kind of go with Trey Lyles, who the Kings they threw Trey Lyles on Nikola Jokic last week, and that's not a favorable matchup. But Lyles has shown that he's strong enough and can hold his own in the paint. And like you said, it's more in the big situation, the big lineups. You have PJ Washington as well in there. From a forward standpoint, they do have Najee Marshall, who is capable of big games. I think he had 28 or 30 points a week or so ago. He's capable of getting hot, but you don't really want to focus on that too much. But I'm more intrigued to see who Keegan Murray is lined up against. I think that Klay Thompson or Dinwiddie make the most sense. Probably Dinwiddie because he's going to have the ball and be initiating the offense more. But having the double big lineups down there of Valanciunas and Sabonis might be a good way to counter that, because they will go with that Gafford and Davis lineup a lot probably on Wednesday night.
The team's success isn't strictly relying on LaVine and DeRozan, but look, I think, Frankie, when you get to this point, those are two of the best players, two of the most seasoned, experienced players, and two guys that I anticipate will play well. I'm just curious your thoughts on what we should expect from LaVine and DeRozan on Wednesday.
I mean, have to be aggressive. And we've seen Zach LaVine, he's turned a corner recently, and he's been more, aggressive with his offense. But that stretch where we saw him take, I think, 10 or less field goal attempts a couple of times and really just kind of hurt the Kings and bit them, especially in the end of games, that can't happen. Those are your two best players, especially with Malik Monk out. You're not going to have another initiator. You need to have those guys taking a high amount of volume shots. And looking at Zach LaVine's recent track record here, we'll take yesterday's game out of the equation, but 23 field goal attempts against the Clippers, 20 against Denver, 28 against the Pistons in that game. He scored 43 in, 15 and 21 against Cleveland. Like, he's getting those shots up and he's knocking it down at a high efficiency. And that's going to be really important for the Kings. And I think the big thing is for DeRozan, who, you can go to need a bucket, but you want to make sure the ball isn't stopping too much. Hopefully he has a good feel of the game and kind of can know that when he's not in a good rhythm or needs to kind of find it elsewhere. Zach LaVine's someone who has that same capability and can get a bucket. And outside of those two guys, like I said, kind of what we're hoping to avoid with Dallas, you want to have the Kings kind of have on their end. You want to see guys like Trey Lyles, Keon Ellis knock down threes. Keegan Murray has really missed some open looks lately. Can he knock down those? This is a single elimination game, so missing open looks are going to be a lot more costly on Wednesday night. So if you can have LaVine and DeRozan play to their capability, you're going to be in a very good spot, because I think you can pencil in Domas for a double-double. Obviously, he does it every night. You can pencil in, Valanciunas off the bench to get you some rebounds and, be there around the basket. But as far as the game-changing type performances, those are your two guys right now. And no Malik Monk to help you out. So I'm looking at big things from those guys. And Dallas doesn't really have those kind of on-ball defenders to really take both out of the equation. So that's going to be big to watch and see how Zach LaVine and DeRozan play on Wednesday in Sacramento.
Do you think we see LaRavia? Do you expect to see him at all?
Based on our buddy Brendan Nunez got to catch up with him in the locker room yesterday, it sounded like that it's unlikely, and there's no official word from the team yet, but it just seemed like it's not trending that direction that he'll be available, and that obviously hurts the Kings as far as their forwards go, and that versatility as far as LaRavia can defend multiple positions. And there's practice today in a couple hours, and we'll see if he's out there, and maybe he'll try to give it a go. But it seemed like him being available for Wednesday or Friday is in doubt at the moment.
All right, Frankie, we always appreciate what you're sharing with us. We know you'll continue to do that on SactownSports.com and the different outlets out there. Frankie, you always do bring the boom, don't you?
I usually leave that to Verlad, but he can do it for me. It seems like he does it every time anyway.
That's what we do.
Yeah. See, there you go.
I'm not capable of that. So
I think you're underselling yourself. You definitely do. Frankie, thank you so much, and we'll see you out there on Wednesday.
All right, guys. See you later.
All right, thank you. That is Frankie Cartoscelli. Bring in the boom. That's right.
Break up the mids.
Every time he's with us.
It's a little too close to the we bring the boom.
Yeah. What do you have another thought at it?
We bring the boom. That's what we do.
Yeah, so thanks again to Frankie Cartoscelli. Anything you ever miss on any segment of the show, feel free to go back to our Sactown Sports YouTube page or our podcast and check out everything that we've done on all of our shows. All right, when we come back, more on that news that was